we have Gary Warden leading
Blue should already be on it.
in the third heat.
Okay, 40 seconds.
Gary turned 31 laps in that heat. Phil was with 31 laps also. Gary is leading with a 91 lap total. Phil and James Benz are tied at 89 lap total each. James gave up a lap to Phil in that heat. James turned 30 laps to Phil's 31. However, they are now tied in second place behind Gary. Jim Wood got a slow start. He had a new car tonight that he wasn't used to, his first time racing it. So he didn't do as well on a start as he should have. He's only got 85 laps and only got 29 laps on that heat. Jim was running on the green lane, which is a pretty good lane. He should have done better. Gary Warden was on yellow lane, and James Ben was on purple with Phil Sloan on red. Red's a very hard lane. Red and white are both very difficult. So they turned out some really good lap times. And so here we are into the fourth heat. Looked like Phil Sloan might have came off, and he's back on track and doing a little bit. Phil is a good racer. He'll be leaving to go north soon, but he's a real good racer. And James Ben is having a good night, and as well as Gary Warden. Jim Wood is running with Phil. Phil's pulling away from Jim Wood. Phil deslotted and Jim Wood got by him. James Ben is about to cross the start-finish line to add another lap, and Gary Warden is right behind James. So while James Ben is putting that car on, we'll get ready to fire off again. There it is. That is Phil's car, Phil Sloan's. Phil is teaching us how to run NASCAR. He set up or advised to set up nearly all the cars that were running tonight. I got my NASCAR and didn't have any weight on it and couldn't handle it and just didn't know anything about anything. And on our L&P cars, we normally don't run any lead on those or any extra weight. We just try to tune those bodies so straight that they run really well. And with these NASCARs, with these sharp corners, that sharp corner after that start-finish line kills me. I wreck there more than anywhere else on the track, especially on red and white. And tonight I'm just very cautious because I have wrecked so much on that corner. And so I've done pretty well overall, but I'm just slow on lap times. And so Phil is running a pretty solid race. Gary's running a pretty solid race, and James Ben is running a very solid race. But I'm just slacking a little. But maybe by the time next race rolls around, I'll be ready for it. We're getting ready to restart after that D-slot, and there's Gary leading that pack with Phil Sloan right behind him and Jim Wood trailing that up. I think James Ben is ahead of all of us, trying to come up behind us and lap us, and I'm sure he'll lap my red, white, and blue car. Let's just see who D-slots next. They're running a good race. Everybody's staying in the slot very well. Right after the donut, there is a squiggle, and it seems to impact the cars more on red and white than it does on the inner lanes. But if you aren't paying attention, that squiggle can throw you off into the wall of that curve. And that's end of heat. And so we'll be taking a 2-minute break and getting ready to start another heat. I don't think I have the stats for that 4th heat. I'll have them in the 5th heat. That'll be coming up. And we'll be changing lanes and taking care of our cars, getting ready for the next heat. So just kind of stand by a moment and we'll see if we can get that going for you. Alright, the clock's going to be ticking down here pretty quick. Drivers are going to have to get to their stations. Because that clock will run off and leave you. I'll tell you, it's a handful to try to run the video and the switcher and have the right camera up all the time and while you're trying to race. It's tough, but we're trying to figure out our audio equipment. We think we had we thought we had everything we needed, and come to find out one of the cords that we needed to adapt from a 1/4-inch microphone plug to an 1/8 inch. The cord was bad, so here we go. Well, there we don't go. Looked like Gary might have deslotted on yellow. I can't see the car well enough. I think it's Gary. No, that was James. So we have Phil leading that group. Phil can run. Phil's on blue, it looks like. Gary is on white. James Benz is on yellow, and Jim Wood is on purple. So Phil is still leading the group. James has gotten by Gary and is challenging Phil. Phil is in for a race, and James is running strong tonight. Well, looked like Gary just came off under the bridge. Almost caught Jim on the way. He rolled on out through the bridge and is back in the slot. We're fixing to restart that heat. Here we go. Alright, there goes Phil. There goes James. There went Jim. There went Gary. And we stopped again. Here we go. There's Phil. Looked like James might have got by Phil, maybe. Jim Wood had a problem. Deslotted on that turn he loved so much. Actually, it's not bad at all on purple. That's just a driver error all the way. But here we go again. There goes James. There goes Gary, Jim, and Phil. Phil will probably catch us and pass Gary and I. We'll see. The way James is driving, he may catch Phil again. Phil's about to pass Gary. He's close. There he goes, passing Gary right there. Gary's trying to fight him off, but with that lane choice, I just don't think Gary can do it. There goes Phil. He's running away from him. And we stop again. Looked like James might have deslotted up there. Yeah, James deslotted up on the corner. That's going to put Phil a little closer to him. Those D-slots really bite you when you get ahead and you try to stay ahead. They'll bite you bad and cause you a heat. All right, there's Phil and there's Gary, and there went James. Phil was right on James's donkey. James looked like he's pulling away. End of heat. That was heat 5. The board should come up here momentarily. At the end of 5 heats, looks like we have a 3-way tie. There it is. We got Gary, James, and Phil, all three in a 3-way tie for first place, all with 150 laps. On that segment, Gary got 29 laps. James and Phil both got 30. So when Gary deslotted, that cost him a lap. Otherwise, he would still be in first place. As far as on times, on fast laps, Gary had a 3.917. James smoked it with a 3.767. Phil with a 3.811, and Jim Wood came in with a 3.768 on black. Black is the faster lane, and purple is right there with it. James did really good on yellow. This heat, Gary will rotate to red, James will rotate to orange, and Jim will rotate from purple to black, and Phil will rotate from blue to, I lost my colors, I think purple. I think Phil goes from blue to purple. There's a view. You can look underneath the AC tunnel and see Sebring posters. We have Sebring posters from all of 1980 except for 1982 and 1989. If anybody has a 1982 or 1890 Sebring poster that they have put away, I need to fill some gaps, and then I want to start on 1970s. But we got it all the way from the 80s through 2024. We're about to start heat number 6. On heat 6, James will be on orange, Phil will be on purple, Gary will be on red, and Jim will be on black. Black and purple are some pretty good lanes. Jim just wrecked on black, but he should make some good time on black. There goes Phil streaking around. Phil is smoking hot. And looks like Gary trying to catch him. I mean, you got to realize this is a 100-foot track, 101 foot. And you're turning laps in 3.7 seconds. You got to be really skilled with that finger on the trigger. It doesn't take much of anything to cause you to deslide. You just gas it at just the wrong time. You come out real quick. Here we go again. Boy, you can see that white car fly by. There goes James and Gary. It must have been a pretty good wreck under the bridge. Jim was bending down trying to fish cars out. He's probably the one that caused it. Excuse my cough. All right, we're getting ready to go again. They're all bunched up nice and tight. All right. Who came off this time? Looks like Gary might have come out. No, that was James, I think. Gary's right there behind Jim. I do believe. All right, that's the end of the 6th heat. Number 7 coming up. Drivers have changed lanes. This heat, Phil Sloan should be on black, which means he's going to be going really fast. James Benz will be on white, which is a challenging lane. Gary Warden will be on green, which is a fast lane. Jim Wood will be on yellow, which also is a fast lane. James turned a fast lap of 3.754. Phil turned a fast lap of 3.746. Gary a 3.838 on red, which is not a bad time on red. Jim Wood on black turned a 3.760, which is a little slower than it should have been. James got 31, Phil 31 laps, Gary and Jim 30 each that heat. So James leads with 181, with Phil tied at 181, Gary at 180, and Jim behind at 176. Still a good race. Still anybody's race except for Jim's, probably. 4 laps is a lot to make up at this point. But top 3 racers, any one of the top 3 racers could win that. So we'll let them tune the cars, clean them up, make whatever adjustments they need to make, and we'll be firing this thing off here in just a minute. Our goal is to video these races and try to get them down, eventually try to get them down to about 30 minutes maximum length. We'll be cutting out all the time between heats once we announce each heat's results. We'll be editing it out and trying to shorten these things up where they're more pleasant to watch. All right, there goes Phil. Sorry about that. We'll try to see if we can get that edited out somewhere along the way. All right, looks like Gary and Phil up there side by side. Up top, getting ready to come down the front straight. James went ahead of them, and Jim pulled up the rear and wrecked right off my favorite turn. I think we need to name that Jim Wood Bend, or Jim Wood Wreck Site, or something, or Jim Wreckham Woods Crash Site. It is clearly problematic for me. Now you understand why I'm in 4th place. All right, there we go. Up. This time it was not me. Boy, I gained 3/4 of a lap on them guys on that crash. Need to do that about 10 more times and I might catch up. All right. Got James on white. That's a tough lane. And looks like Gary's on green next to James. And Phil looks to be on black. Phil will be making up some time quick. Gary's trying to pass James. Strangely enough, I think Jim's trying to pass Gary. Jim crashed right up there at top. Here we go again. We got Gary and Jim right there on the coming out of the bank. Got Phil entering the bank and Jim Wood way down at the far end. Gary and James are running hard. Phil's trying to catch them. Think he would like to pass them if I didn't know any better. And he just got by James and he's heading for Gary. Looked like Jim might have got past somebody. I think Jim got past James. That's a miracle. I am talking about myself, so I will tease and cut up and criticize myself, so don't mind my sense of humor. It'll be okay. Boy, Phil and Gary are going at it. Phil finally is starting to pull away. Jim was successful at getting ahead of James. But Jim's 3 or 4 laps down to James, so that really doesn't matter and doesn't impress anybody, but it made Jim feel better. That's a good run. Probably heat over. Yep, heat over. All right, that's the end of heat 7, I believe. We'll be going into the 8th heat. That'll be our last heat of the evening on this track. That handsome guy is Jim right there. He's my favorite racer. Look at that. Doesn't he look sharp? That old bald head and them glasses. All right, here we have it. Phil Sloan is in the lead at 212 laps with James Ben and Gary Warden racing lap for lap, trying to catch Phil. They're at 210 each. Jim Wood's behind at 207. Phil turned 31 laps. Jim Wood turned 31 laps. Phil was on black. Jim was on yellow. James Ben turned 29 on white. And Gary turned 30 on green. Phil will be going to yellow, which is a good lane. James will be going to red, which is a tough lane. Gary will be going to blue, it's a good lane. And Jim will be going to orange, which is a good lane. So Gary and Jim should be running fairly even this next heat. James has got a, in my opinion, uphill battle on red because that sharp turn is a killer going under the bridge. Phil Sloan is probably going to mop up with everybody on this last heat. Let's see if he pulls away like I think he will. 24 seconds to go. And on fast laps, Phil turned a fast lap of 3.715. James turned a fast lap of 3.912. Gary turned a 3.777. And Jim turned a 3.778. So had some good lap times. Jim and Gary both turned excellent lap times. And now we're about to start the last heat. Here we go. Let's hold on and see what happens with this. Yellow flag. What did I do? Leave it on the scoreboard the whole heat? Please tell me I didn't do that. It looks like our knothead producer left it on the scoreboard the whole heat. Here goes the countdown. That's what's difficult about racing and videoing. I'll have to try to edit some of this out and just give you the rundown at the end. I'm going to go ahead and give the rundown now. And if the camera comes back to the racetrack, that's okay. What we had at the end of the 8 heats, Phil Sloan won the race with 243 laps. He got 31 laps in the last heat and had a fast lap of 3.830. Gary Warden came in second by a car length, basically. He and James Benz got caught on a curve, and our policy is the closest one to the seam wins. Gary was on the inside lane, which gave him an advantage because he had less room to travel to the seam. So Gary got second place. James Benz got third place. Jim Wood finished in fourth place. So when we totaled everything up, Phil had 243 laps at the end. Gary had 240. James had 240. Jim had 237. Fast laps on that last heat was Phil with a 3.830. Gary with a 3.764. James with a 3.862. And Jim with a 3.812. And that brought us to an end there, and we're going to cut the video off here. Thank you for watching. I will try to get better and better as we go and try to improve these videos. It's just going to take me a little time with this learning curve, but thank you for watching. Remember to like us and subscribe to our channel, please. We're trying to get monetized, and your help will help us get there. Thank you so much.